Hi, Keith Livingston here with Healthy Intelligent Training. I'm talking today with Greg McMillan. He's a top US middle distance and distance running coach with McMillanRunning.com. Greg, tell us how you started running and got interested in endurance.
Well, I was really lucky. I grew up on a farm, and so I was quite active when I was young. And then in elementary school, they started having these competitions where you would participate in lots of different events, everything from the 100-yard dash to the long jump to the softball throw to the mile run. And if you were the top two at your school, you got to represent your school in the county championship. So I won that at my elementary school and then won it in the county championship. So naturally, the high school coach, he just goes and watches that and he says, there's my sprinter, there's my thrower, there's my long distance guy. So by the time I got to high school, he was ready for me to come on board. Of course, came up to me and said, hey, why don't you come out for cross country and track? So I had a start early on, though it was just happenstance that my school had that. And once I got into high school, that's when I really fell in love with the sport and kind of has driven everything in my life since.
Great. Okay. And now you're well known for your advocacy of the Lydiard methods. How did you get involved with Arthur Lydiard's coaching methods?
The very first running book I read in high school was running the Lydiard method. It was about the Lydiard method. And so that was a very early introduction to how you should train. And then subsequent books that I read, like Galloway's first book, his first book on running, essentially is a synopsis of Lydiard's training. So I had multiple exposures to it, and I just really took to it. I thought it was amazing. I have it here still. I took his training schedules and even typed them myself. My dad took the training schedules into work and had it bound into this book, but I still have today. So I've had this for almost 40 years now. And so I think just having that early exposure, it just made sense to me. I feel like we kind of trained on that system in high school. It was kind of the basis of our training. So to me, it was a kind of a natural fit. And then as I began to study exercise physiology, it made sense from that standpoint as well. And then, of course, getting to meet him and tour with him. And he got a big chuckle out of seeing that I had hand typed his book there. That really formed the basis of okay, this is a training system that can be applied in so many different ways.
And of course, you were with Arthur when he passed away. I don't know if everyone knows that, but he would have established a firm friendship with you, I imagine, on the basis of your hand typing or typing out the book.
Well, we did. We had a wonderful time together when we were on tour, and we got very, very close. I mean, he was somebody that I looked up to, and to, over the course of that time, get to know him very well, get a chance to ask all those questions that you have when you read the books. You have question after question. We were touring through Texas by car, and Texas is a giant state. So got hours and hours with him alone. And so we became very close, and he was very nice to me. And, it was a very traumatic thing to be there in the room when, your kind of coaching hero dies. But I feel like it did, at least I said, okay, I can try to continue to further his message through the work that I do.
Yeah, great. Now, you've done some really good work. When I came over to the States in 2010, I remember visiting you in Flagstaff with your young family at the time. And at that stage, you had quite a squad of pro runners, including, he won the Houston Marathon.
Brett Gocher.
Yeah, and other very good runners like Limoncello,
Andrew Limoncello, yep.
Yeah, so at one stage a while ago, you were telling me that you found a way of adapting the anaerobic work in the Lydiard framework specifically to one particular athlete who'd done the base work, but he improved out of sight in his 5,000 meter time. So is that usual or unusual, or is it, what was it that you did with this guy?
Well, it was very interesting. And again, hearkening back to my time with Lydiard, one of the things that I learned from him was to be very observant and listen to the athletes. We would, we do these talks and then people were asking questions. He would answer. We go back to the hotel room and I'd say, well, why did you say that to that runner and then something different to the other? And I realized he was listening better than I was. So this particular athlete named Jordan, I'd watched him in college and then recruited him to join our Olympic development team. And on paper, he seemed like he was more of an endurance oriented athlete. Like he would suit him to be more endurance. He ran about 100 to 110 miles per week in college, and he could handle that. That's typically something a more endurance-oriented person can do. His 10K was far superior to his 5K time. So again, you would think, okay, he's going to be better at long distance work. So he just sort of came to the team, and that's the picture that I had of him. And so the first year that we were together, we kind of went through our normal training process that we would do, which is sort of base in the fall and then hills in the winter. And then we would do the race specific training in the spring for track. And at that time, he improved his 5K from 14 minutes and 11 seconds to 14 minutes and 1 second. And so that was a good improvement, but he didn't improve his 10K at all. And he really kind of suffered in the more endurance-oriented workouts that we were doing. So we got finished with the track season and we sat down like all coaches and athletes do, and we kind of reviewed the last 12 months, what was good, what was not, what did he feel like he needed more of or less of, all of those normal things. And I told him, I said, Jordan, I think I messed up. On paper, you look like a real endurance monster type person, like you'd really take to that. But if we start looking at the more speed type things, when we got into that in the track season, you actually perform better in that. Your 5K improved, whereas your 10K didn't, even though we did all this sort of endurance work. I said, I think you might be more speed oriented than originally we thought. So I think for the next training cycle, so again, we went fall, winter, spring, getting ready for track, I modified his training slightly to be more for a speedster type runner. So here's an example. In our base phase, which is a very Lydiard type base phase, we would often do what Lydiard would call a 3/4 effort run. We called it a steady state run. And that's typically a continuous run that we do around this 2-mile loop in Flagstaff. But he always suffered in that run. He couldn't keep up with the other guys. So I said, hey, let's start breaking that up. We'll still do the same volume of training, but instead of it being, say, an hour at that effort, we're going to do it as 3 times 20 minutes or 6 times 10 minutes. And we'll take just a sliver of recovery during that period. All of a sudden, he got faster and faster across that training cycle just by adjusting that. He had a more positive experience, and he got the physiological benefits. We didn't do too much change during the hill kind of training because that kind of suited him because he was already sort of a more dynamic type runner. But then when we got to outdoor track, that's where I shifted him to doing much more work like I would do with a 1,500 or 3,000 meter runner, and not doing the work that we had done the year before, more 10K type runners. So again, I was just trying to make the training match his sort of physiology and psychology. And that's where we started to see him have positive workout after positive workout after positive workout. And that, of course, built his confidence. And all of a sudden, he broke 4 minutes in the mile. He went from 14:01 to 13:31. So he took 30 seconds off his 5K. I mean, this is the same athlete, same coach, same environment, but just a subtle tweak in how we applied the training to better fit him. And again, that's one of the things I learned from Arthur, was to really look and listen to the athlete and then figure out what do they need more of or less of, or what's going to really fit that athlete. And for Jordan, I mean, it's a massive jump, but he probably should have done half that jump the year before. I just didn't coach him correctly for that. but it just showed to me, it reinforced, yeah, if you can get the training really dialed in for the athlete, they perform better, the quality of the training goes way up, they have a lot more fun and their confidence gets higher. And if you have a fit, confident, motivated athlete, they'll go and race well because they're driven. They want to achieve. So it was one of the greatest things that I did in coaching the pro team, really, was with Jordan, of realizing, okay, you look different, you are different than you look like on paper. Let's make the training fit you instead of the other way around.
That's great, Greg. I didn't realize he also broke 4 minutes for the mile.
Yeah, fantastic.
So with that, what type of work were those specific sessions? I'm quite intrigued. Was it like VO2 max intensity, or was it
Well,
fun?
yeah, we didn't do a ton of VO2 max in Flagstaff because that's at 7,000 feet or 2,100 meters. So that's
Yes.
a really stressful work there. But we did a lot more, almost like, shorter repeats with less recovery. So we're kind of getting VO2 max without it being 800s or 1200s or 1500s or 1600 meter repeats. We just did more volume of the shorter, faster work. And then I put in a lot more of the anaerobic type training, 5 times 200 meters, 8 times 200 meters, 5 times 300 meters, things like that, that were really much more anaerobic or lactic acid tolerance for him. Whereas the other guys, we might be doing a little bit more of the VO2 max or even threshold type work with them. And so it was just that subtle change of essentially training him a little bit more like I would a 1,500 meter runner, and giving him more of those kinds of workouts. And of course, we had done a massive, this is 2 years of base work. So he had 2 full, in our base, we would try to get 16 weeks of base training in prior to moving to the hills and then the race specific. So he certainly had developed that aerobic engine as well, but then we topped it off, I think, with a little bit more specific. And he was really interesting because I wouldn't say that he had amazing leg turnover. You mentioned Andrew Limoncello probably had better leg turnover, that just raw speed, but Jordan had that ability to kind of sustain it for longer. And that was kind of what I cued in on in his training, was let's make that training kind of fit what works for him. And when he broke 4 minutes in the mile, it wasn't that he ran 52 seconds for the last 400. He was really just able to maintain and run quickly over that last 400 meters, but it wasn't like some amazing change of speed. So a lot of it with him was just, okay, if all the guys are going to do, 4 times a mile, then you're going to be doing, 20 times 400 meters. And so just, again, making it fit him a little bit better.
Yep, understood. Okay, so that's great. Now, what is motivating you right now in your own training? I take it you're keeping in shape yourself.
I try to a little bit. Obviously, I got a family, so you want to stay fit and be able to. I got a 13-year-old son, so to keep up with him, you got to stay fit for sure. He's getting bigger and stronger every day.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of fun. And obviously, coaching people is a real positive in my life, to be able to work with people around the world and share with them their experiences of trying to achieve some running goals. A lot of fun.
And you're telling me before that you switched away from training the pros because of the time demands on your family, which is a major consideration, but you're really enjoying your current coaching clients?
Absolutely. I think that, it's the same, the speed's different, but it's the same in that you're taking somebody from where they are to where they want to go, and you're living with them through the inevitable ups and downs that they have. And, like any coach, when you have somebody that calls you up or you're watching them online, their race results, and that they achieve something that they didn't quite believe that they could do before. Jordan was another good example of that. I told him, I said, I think you can break 4 minutes in the mile. Well, that's a big deal to break 4 minutes in the mile. And he wasn't quite sure about that, but slowly we just kept working on it and kept sort of selling him on the idea. So for me, it's the same, whether it's somebody trying to break 5 hours in the marathon or 2 hours in the half marathon, or they're trying to win their age group or qualify for Boston. The process is the same of trying to help those people. So I just try to apply a lot of what I've learned working with the back, the middle, and the front of the pack to try to give them an experience that will fit them and their life schedule, and then help them improve.
Great. Okay, Greg, that was fantastic. Thank you very much.
You bet.